Hi, this is Daniel Scrivner here with a preview of our next episode, which is a very short essay breakdown. It's actually an opinion piece that Michael Moritz, the famed venture capitalist, wrote about Steve Jobs. And it was published in the Financial Times in November 2015. It's called Imitators Take Note, Steve Jobs Was More Than a Showman. And what's fascinating about this piece, the reason I wanted to cover it is, as you know, we're in the middle of a prolific series covering Steve Jobs. We are covering his speeches. We are covering biographies written about him. We are covering, the perspectives of many close collaborators, from Nolan Bushnell, who was the first person to hire Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak at Atari, to Ken Segall, who worked with him as a creative director at Chiat Day, to Tony Fadell, who came on to basically build the iPod with Steve Jobs. And, Mike Moritz is another really fascinating perspective for a couple of reasons. So Mike's most well known as a venture capitalist and he effectively ran Sequoia Capital for a number of years, but he was also made incredible investments during that time. He invested in Google, PayPal, YouTube, and Stripe, and many, many others. He was very successful. But what I think most people don't know is he also wrote the first book on Apple, which was The Little Kingdom. And he actually started out his career as a journalist for Times. And in those years, Steve actually contracted Michael to document the development of the Mac and be effectively Apple's historian at the time. Now, what's fascinating about this is, we're going to cover The Little Kingdom very soon. It's, I think, one of the best books written, and it's a very early look at Apple and at Steve Jobs, which is why I think it's so fascinating. But the quick commentary I want to share, because it's really interesting, is, so Steve contracted Mike Moritz. Fast forward a number of years, and basically a piece ends up getting published in the Times. And Mike Moritz says that his editor took many liberties with all of the research that he did. Steve ends up reading the piece and basically hates it so much he breaks all contact with Mike Moritz and effectively, as far as I know, never talked to him again. So there's this really interesting background and dichotomy between Mike Moritz and Steve. But the reason I wanted to cover this piece, not only does Mike have, I think, unique insight into Apple and into Steve Jobs, he also covers something that I've never seen anyone else cover, I think, as interestingly, which is, and so this piece, Imitators Take Note, Steve Jobs Was More Than a Showman, is all about one thing. And it's effectively saying, if you look at Apple and you see this amazing showman and you think Steve Jobs and, his kind of larger than life personality, his ability to captivate people's attention is why Apple's successful. Mike says, you're absolutely wrong. And the reason you're absolutely wrong is because Apple, even in the earliest years, was incredibly capital efficient. They stretched every nickel, and he goes on to give some details about the initial public offering, that in the year preceding Apple going public, the company does 117 million in sales and has pre-tax income of 24 million. And that's after paying for the salaries of 1,000 people on the team at the time. And so, the link that he's making is that Apple should be thought of and Apple should be studied as, this kind of groundbreaking technology company married with incredible operating efficiency and incredible capital efficiency. And if you miss that second piece, you are missing basically half of the puzzle. And so it's a fascinating opinion piece. I think it's a really interesting, unique insight on Steve Jobs and Apple. For more, listen to the full episode. You can also find the episode. You can find the show notes. You can find this video and more at outlieracademy.com/imitators take note.